Robbie Devers wrote in and said, hello all. Recently, controversy has been fairly frequent on Twitter regarding Elden Ring being nominated for Best Narrative at the Game Awards. Aside from the fact that awards really mean nothing, do you think FromSoft's atypical and atmospheric storytelling is worthy of a nomination? I believe it is, as they take a different approach to their lore, world building, and plots. Different storytelling styles are underrepresented and remedies that. Thank you, chicken fuckers. Thank you, Robbie, for writing in. Dustin and Chris, you're both very passionate about this game, but Dustin, I'll go to you first. This is the thing that I think is most interesting about the game. As someone who played it for 20 hours or so, wasn't good at it, didn't get very far, just hopeless. It was this weird atmosphere and lore and kind of trying to figure things out. That was the most exciting and interesting part of the game. So I think that that's certainly worthy of some acknowledgement. And I think that that's probably most closely aligned with narrative. Although I think you could have, I don't know if they have the award, but best atmosphere could be another thing, which I think would be fun to explore. And maybe that is more this. Maybe it's not literally a narrative, but I think it's figuratively a narrative. What do you think?
Yeah, I am finding it shocking that people don't think that this game qualifies for that because it doesn't lay it out in a cinematic story like most other games do, right? Like, I feel like I think about a book like House of Leaves. It's not told in a traditional way that a book is. There's like manuscripts and like weird like ways that the text is written out, and people think that book is amazing because it tells a story in a way unlike any book before it. I'm not totally sure about that, but it seems like any book before it.
What's it called?
It's called House of Leaves. I've never read it myself because I'm too intimidated by it, but there's totally weird shit in that book where like there'll be sideways text.
Keep going.
Oh, Colin's on the move.
A tornado's probably at his door.
His what?
A tornado probably knocked on his door.
Oh yeah, it's finally time.
Yeah.
Colin actually, I wonder if he's going to get the House of Leaves. But anyway, so yeah, just because it's not necessarily straightforward doesn't mean that it doesn't qualify, especially because think about like the amount of lore in those games. If you're willing to take the time and the dedication to really get it and understand it, it's very rewarding. It's almost like, man, some people will take this negatively, but like it almost is gameplay discovering the story. In itself, totally. Like through different items, through different manuscripts or whatever that you find in the game, like that's all can be really rewarding. And it's, you can play the game and not understand any of it and just go through and play it. That's fine. I think that's kind of one of the beautiful things about the game.
Yeah, no, it's really dope. It's a storytelling style that takes advantage of what video games are. And I think there's a bit of an we've had traditional storytelling in video games for a long time. Obviously, Gears of War and Uncharted, and you have cutscenes that lay out a narrative, and maybe there's some speaking of maybe there's some like dialogue during gameplay and stuff, and that's cool. It's a valid way of doing it, but it's definitely not taking as much of advantage of the fact that it's a game as other games are. And I think it's just really, really cool that Elden Ring, and even we talk about BioShock as having one of the best stories. A lot of that story really isn't told to you directly. Like it's all audio logs that you have to find of your own volition and pick up and actively piece things together. Sometimes you find things out of order, and that's a really, really engaging way to experience a narrative. And Elden Ring's a little bit more obfuscated. It's a little bit more obtuse, and it's a little bit more cryptic. But I think I was really enthralled by the fact that I wasn't sure what was happening, and I was trying to figure things out. I felt the same way about Control, actually, because Control has on the surface, it has a really normal story. Like there's cutscenes and there's conversations you can have with people, but then there are all these, like we were talking about earlier, there are all these books and all these like written out, really, really in-depth reading material. And I remember when I was playing that game initially, I was too intimidated by it to really delve into that stuff. But it's really, really cool. And even in Destiny 2 right now, like things like the seasonal model has their own cutscenes, but then there are stories within the guns. And then like it's super, I don't know. I think our scope of what makes a good narrative in video games, or enough to win awards, I guess, is really narrow, and it actually kind of harkens back to what we were talking about earlier about wanting to be more like other mediums, where the stories that we reward, while they are great and they are very good and deserving of at least a nod for sure, maybe they're even deserving to win. But there's no question that the ones that are selected are the ones that are most emulatory of other mediums that aren't video games. And I don't know, it's interesting that that's true, because I definitely think Elden Ring qualifies as a great narrative. There's objectively so much there. There's those Vati videos that go into in depth on all the lore and all the stuff that you can find in game are super engrossing.
By the way, I got up because I have House of Leaves, but I couldn't find it because I was going to show it on camera because of the layout. I don't know where it is. I have a first copy of it because my sister bought it for me in 2000, and it is a really unique book. I never read the sequel, but it is a unique and interesting book with a different presentation. So I wanted to get up to see if I can illustrate better what you were talking about. I wanted to go into this to this next inquiry though before I get, because we can kind of connect it to what Robbie Devers is saying here a little bit, because of the dialogue surrounding the narrative, or the whatever you want to call it, just the exhausting nonsense. Simon and about it being at the Game Awards, I should say.